or other publishing. Wade Franson is the host of Created in the Image of God, a series that examines the role of religion in society, from messianic returns to the emotive responses transmitted through our culture. Wade fearlessly addresses reality claims from all directions, objectively exploring their compatibility with Holy Scripture. Tonight's episode, Unraveling the Bible, with Stephen Machat.
Good evening, everyone. Wade Franson here. It is Tuesday night. We are ready for the Created in the Image of God show. And what a treat we have tonight. Last week we had Nimrod, Avraham, who is the creator of God's Gang. And he introduced me to a gentleman that he's worked with who is, I've got to say this, one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. You know those ads for the most interesting man on earth? Well, this guy has really done it all, and I cannot wait to bring him on stage and dive into some of the topics that we haven't even begun to explore yet. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Stephen Machat, and let me bring him there to full screen. Hey, Stephen, how are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, you're down in Florida, is that right?
I'm in Delray, and if I may, hello, audience. I hope you find this as interesting as your program director is. Wade's a good guy, and I'm honored to be here with you, Wade.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, we're going to dive right into it. As we always do on this show, we like to explore first your origin story. So, tell us a little bit about your parents, where they were from, came from, what they did, and how it was that you were brought into the world, where you were born, and then those early formative pre-adolescent years that shaped you. Tell us a little bit about that piece of your personal history.
All right, so to go there, and I'm going to answer you. My whole life, I believed that I am not my body. I believe I'm a spirit that comes from the Creator, who unfortunately mankind doesn't understand that the Creator and those creatures who lived here on earth were called gods. So I believe my energy came in from somewhere else. My body was formed, and my body was formed by my mother and my father. And they raised me, and my energy was motivated. It was like a Play-Doh type of thing where, you sit there and you make your own new shapes and everything. Your parents shape you. My mom was from Brooklyn. Her father, which I don't know if you were asking me, I'm giving it to you anyway. Her
Sure.
father was Sephardic. He was Spanish. He came over to the United States. Few people know that Spain once owned and controlled the country that today we call Holland. They owned and controlled the country they called Belgium. So when the Catholic Church went nuts and told them to get rid of all the Sephardics, what they did is they went up to Holland. They went into the Low Countries, then they went to Belgium, and then they kept going around. And my grandfather got out when he was there. My father,
And was that for religious reasons? Is that why they were getting
totally,
rid of them?
yeah, totally, because they wanted to control you. And the
Yeah.
whole Catholic Church, the entire premise of what the Catholic Church does is what they do is they create a scam, us versus them, because we can't all be. What amazes me is you live in these religions, and these religions actually tell you that God created me and God did not create you. And if you don't agree with me, I now know God didn't create you. And this religion can kill you. And you sit there and it's like, hey, wait a minute, time out. We all come from the same creator. Maybe we were teammates with the different gods who were called in the film in the book. But no. We all need to live here on earth in peace and happiness, which is where I agree with what your religion's about. You're a peaceful religion. I call earth heaven. And they did too. They called their planet heaven. Heaven to me is a place of health and happiness where we play teamwork with everybody and we build a better world, because this world is temporary. It doesn't last forever. So my mother's family was, I told you, was a Sephardic and an Ashkenazi. Who are the Ashkenazis? Those are the ones that the Catholic Church, when they created new nations like Germany, they needed everyone to be the same race. Now, since those races in Europe were all Christian, and Christianity was divided into two religions, the Eastern Orthodox Church, because they didn't take on Papa, and then the Western Catholic Church, and they've had war since 1066. 1066, they both excommunicated ourselves. And if you want to understand why we hate Russia, because we're a Western Catholic nation. We're a white
So
resident.
I'm gonna reel you in just a little bit because
Bring me in.
we can get into many of those things, but I
Yeah.
want to know. So it sounds like some of those thoughts and ideas that you're expressing now, were they transmitted through your parents in those early years because of their experiences?
100%.
Okay.
I mean,
So you had a Sephardic. No, your mom was Sephardic. Your father
no,
was
she was
Ashkenazi.
the other way.
Okay. So
My
your
mom
father
was
came from.
Sephardic and Ashkenazi mixed.
Okay.
Dad was Sephardic.
Okay. And so then you were also born in New York, or where were you?
I was born in Manhattan, raised in Brooklyn until I was 5.
Well,
Then we
you
moved.
you do know I live in Brooklyn, right? But it's Brooklyn, Wisconsin. It's a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit smaller
By the
than.
way, it's same thing, right? Brooklyn's a Dutch word, but we don't know that. We're not allowed
Yeah,
to know that.
yeah.
And I moved to Roslyn, and funnily enough, the woman that I will leave planet Earth with, I met her first in 1964, and her name's Debbie, and it took me 56 years to kiss her. Which was in 2020. And Debbie kept me alive when I had an abscess eating my spinal cord last year, and they
Wow.
told her I would never make it. They told me I would never walk again. And I'm like, no, no, no. I practice. I bring in energy from the beyond. I'm probably the most active person you'll meet at my age. You know, I'm
So
71.
going back, because I want to establish that little bit
Yeah.
of groundwork. So going back to Brooklyn, what were your earliest experiences as a boy
I'm laughing
that you
because
remember?
no, I remember. I remember going to watch Don Larson pitch I didn't go to watch Don Larson, but I went to the Brooklyn Dodger game with my
Yeah,
mom. And that was the game that Don Larson threw a perfect game.
nice.
1956. I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And mom got me in because she didn't need a ticket. She brought in her young boy.
Yeah.
And, it was a daytime game, and they didn't have nighttime baseball. That's my
So
first memory.
So were your parents then part of the American melting pot experience? They were raising a little American kid who was in love with baseball mom and apple pie. Is that kind of what it was, or were your parents Jewish by
No, there was no religion in my house.
okay.
None. My father had me bar mitzvahed because Dad, and I'm answering where you want to go. My dad was in the music industry. My dad was doing films. My dad was because they wouldn't let people who were allegedly Jewish into property. So Dad had to get into intellectual property, which is why a lot of them are there. And so what happened was, and Dad came out of World War II, and my mom and Dad were humiliated and embarrassed that people who look like them, walk like them, actually believe that the Jews were not the same. And they decided they made lamps and soap out of all these people, in Germany. And it's just astonishing. And what they did is they told the Ashkenazis they were Semites, and an Ashkenazi is not a Semite. A Semite is someone from the area that we call the Middle East that speaks one of the original Sumerian languages. The Ashkenazis were from Europe. And they are, and anyway, I told you we're all from
Yiddish. The term Yiddish is,
Germany.
yeah, it's the Jews are and I lived in Germany for 10 years. So the word for if the Jews had a language, it would be called Yiddish,
Yeah.
right? And so Yiddish is the German sort of
Yes.
alliteration of a Jewish variation of German, Yiddish.
By the way, the letter J, it never existed in any of our Western languages until about 1517, when the Vatican put it in there. They took J. J was the mark that if you were writing in Arabic, you would write a 10X and 3 I's and then put the J, so they couldn't. It would just cross it all out.
So I'm as guilty as you are. I'm going to try to get both of us back on track. So okay, so you grew up and there was this little bit of, your parents wanted you to be a good American kid. They didn't want you really overly influenced by the Jewish religion. But were they intellectuals? Were they trying to make sure that you were, raised with a lot of intellectual stimulation and learning?
My dad believed he was, and Dad ended up in the middle of the music industry as it was growing. So Dad went from the 50s music, and what Dad realized is I talk to everyone. I do. And I love people. I don't care what you are. And I'm not a racist at all. I could care less. If you smile at me like you just did, you smiled. I'm like, okay, he's
Yeah,
smiling. So
well,
I'm
see,
communicating.
the thing about racism is color is skin deep, and we just keep making it into a bigger and bigger deal.
Yeah,
It's
to
the
divide
least
us.
color is the least of the distinctions that differentiate us in a beautiful way, right?
Yeah,
With all of the variations and all of the differences that we have.
it's like flowers. It's that
Right,
beautiful. So
right.
Dad had Sam Cooke, James Brown, Clyde Otis, and he had the Drifters. Dad would put me in these rooms and I'd talk to people. And he realized I had that magic. And it is a magic. I love people. I'm not scared of them,
But
never
but
have been.
then you went and studied accounting. You were going to become a bean counter. What is
No,
up with that?
no, I studied accounting. My dad educated me. He said, Stephen, if you really want to win at this world, you need to know the warfare, the intellectual warfare. You need to understand accounting, the school of business. I went to the school of business in 1970. Not many people did. And they did it in Florida because they didn't want the winter. And then I went to law school at Vanderbilt. And at Vanderbilt, I did public. I got so into it, they didn't have enough public defenders in Nashville. In my second year, they waved me into the bar and I became a public defender for 2 years. And they couldn't wait to get me out of there. And I
Because you
went
were
to
effective?
LA, and there's your Beverly Hills, Billy. I went to LA and I ended up with the
Well,
Olympic
come on, I
Orchestra.
mean, you were from New York, you were not a hillbilly. All right, so you're I mean, we're getting there, right? So you're in accounting and you're also studying law, but you've got your heart is to defend the common man, right? You're a public defender. You're not so your father wanted you to be able to understand the warfare, but it sounds like you were not interested in necessarily using it just for aggrandizement and wealth accumulation.
My
Early
real
on, were
love,
you wanting to do good in the world?
I wanted to know people. I figured I'm here on another trip. I don't believe in any religion. I believe in love. Religions, I don't know a religion that believes in love. If you read the Bible, you want to have an exercise, there's not one word of love written anywhere in it. Never,
Well, I would disagree. So here's the
not the
thing.
New Testament, the Old Testament.
Okay, fair
So
enough. I'm not gonna go there right now. I just want to tell you, and I want to share with the audience a little piece of my personal journey while I share with you. Although most of them may have heard this before, I was in a spiritual dead end for 10 years because I was a Christian, but we went backwards, looking back into the Old Testament to understand how we should behave, right? Which you're laughing at right now, but
no,
we
not
want
you.
we wanted to know how to worship God, right? So the seventh day Sabbath, the day of rest, and then the Jewish holy days. We had this understanding of a prophetic plan and health laws, the food laws that were intended for health. So um, we were very attached to the seventh day Sabbath, and we thought that it had special meaning and significance for us because we had the law and the testimony of Jesus, which is described in Revelation 12. My point in sharing all that is to make this next point. I I realized that Jesus said, "By this shall all men know you, that you are my disciples, that you have love one for another." So the sign of the Christian covenant, according to Jesus in John 13, verse 35, was love. That was
Correct.
it.
I
And
agree.
so then I spent 10 years in a spiritual dead end looking for the
Love.
people whom God was working with who truly had the ability to love the way that I was beginning to see we needed to. And there needed to be a theology because I saw that the standard typical Christian theology does not lead there. You can't, as REM said, you can't get there from here. I mean, they have a great song that says, can't get there from here. But it's a common phrase. You can't get there from here. You cannot believe in this exclusive interpretation of Jesus's statements and that those who aren't professing certain things are going to hell. You can't get to love from there. And the proof is in the pudding because even the Christian religions were casting each other figuratively into hell over picky little doctrinal differences. So I was in a spiritual dead end for 10 years. Exactly, because I saw that, no, the sign was love. The first
The energy
Corinthians
is,
13.
if I could help you,
Yeah.
the
So
energy
any,
is love.
exactly. So anyway, we'll get to more of all of this, but we're going to go to a commercial break. When we come back, I want to I want to hear a little bit more about your history still, what you did with that accounting and that legal training, and I want to talk a little bit about Leonard Cohen, who is but one of the many musicians that you produce. And this is probably the most personally sort of hobby intrigue fascinating part of the interview, and then we'll get more into the religion. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of Stephen Machat after this word from our sponsor.
Welcome to the Royal Falcon Foundation.
Discover the world's religious traditions like never before with Ocean 2.0 Reader. Our custom ebook reader is designed for exploration and study with an immersive audio integrated reading experience and powerful research tools available on all platforms including web, Windows, macOS, Linux, Android, and iOS. Experience the benefits of immersive reading by combining ear and eye with improved comprehension and vocabulary acquisition. Our interfaith library features books from various religions, so you can have access to a wealth of knowledge. Try Ocean 2.0 Reader today and elevate your reading experience.
Welcome back. Let me try to readjust my camera here. I'm out of focus.
Yeah, I'm eating, so watch out. I don't want your audience to know. Anyway, I'm back, folks.
Welcome back.
Here we
So
go.
we're here with Stephen Machat, who has been telling us a little bit of his history. Now he's from
I brought
New
you
York,
to 1976.
but now he's out in LA, and his dad was in the music industry, and now he's getting involved with musicians. Was that the next phase?
Music and films. And what happened was my public defender days didn't go well because I tried to get people out of jail. And then I realized something. Some of these people did wrong and should be in jail. But my job was to get them out of jail. And I'm a truthful guy. That was my job. And everyone needs to be defended and represented. But sometimes some people are really guilty, and it's a hard thing to really do because I put my heart, if I believe you're innocent, I'll put my heart and soul in you. If you're not innocent and you tell that to me, I'll get you the best deal society could give you. But when you're lying to me and all of a sudden my act of persuasion could get you out of jail, it was hard. So I'm answering you without you asking this question. What happened was Dad was representing a company called Capricorn Records, and they were based in Macon, Georgia, and in Nashville. I was in heaven. I was going to law school as a public defender. I had these idiots classes, and everyone's like, man, Chris Christopherson? Man, Willie Nelson, you talk to him? And and the record label had the Allman Brothers, they had Marshall Tucker, and they had this guy who sang a song that probably represents your youth as well as mine. I fooled around and fell in love. It's like, what is
Elvin
that?
Bishop.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, I had them, and then I met with Phil Walton. He goes, we need your energy to elect our governor. I'm like, the Tennessee governor is not running. He says, no, Jimmy Carter. We want you to help us with Jimmy Carter. All of a sudden, I became a Tennessee delegate for Jimmy Carter. And they make me a delegate at the convention in New York. They made me a Cherokee representative. I'm like, oh, I like this. I'm now a Cherokee. And then I ended up working with him. And out of nowhere, we started meeting different artists. And I'm like, Dad, I took the California bar first, and we were there. And we also had offices in London. So when Elvis Presley dropped dead, remember the drug czar? Well, he died of an overdose of drugs, right? Which is pretty ironic. All of a sudden, I told them, I'm not working in an office. I'm not doing any of this crap. You taught me accounting. You taught me law. I'll negotiate the deals. Or I'm going back to Tennessee because I wanted to be in office. And I knew someone from Tennessee, and it happened to have been my classmate because I knew someone would do it. My classmate was Al Gore, and he's 5 years my senior. He was born in 72. I was born in 52. No, I was born in 52. Al Gore was born in 47. So anyway, now I'm like, okay, Dad says to me, go to England. I go, well, okay, I'll go to England. I have no problem doing that. And I met this guy named Freddie Beanstalk who owned most of the publishing of Elvis Presley. Next thing I know, I'm in England. And now being in England, I'm doing this, and it was futile work. What I did was took the songs out of one corporation, put them in another, and I watched people, and it taught me a lot, how they choreographed the songs to make a play. The play was called Elvis. It ran from 1977 to 1997. At the time, my favorite band was a band that, Evil Woman, if you know that. And
ELO.
I wanted to meet ELO. So I set out to go meet ELO, and I met Don Arden. I came back
there. So I got to say, the can't get it out of my head, right? That song, just amazing.
One of the best songs.
Yeah.
And Strange Magic.
Yep.
Same album, right?
Yep. And then they had this backward masking, right? One of their albums, they actually put something on it backwards. So of course I had to play the record backwards. And you play it backwards, the secret hidden message was, the music is reversible. Turn back, turn back, turn back. Yeah. So
anyway, I took the New York bar. So I was a member of New York, Tennessee, California. Really didn't practice. I did criminal work. I did a ton of criminal work when the hip hoppers came out. I was the man that would get them all out of jail. That's how I ended up with Snoop, Daz, Corrupt, the Wu-Tang Clan members, Bullet and Thugs, and, Busy Bone, if you know him. I had Kaya, your audience would know the song, Lick My Neck, My Back. I've had so much music. I've lived and produced music in over 100 nations. I love people.
Which we could talk about for the next 30 hours because
Yeah.
I'm such a music geek, but I want to know about the man that I quoted in my trilogy. The opening verse of each of my books is Leonard Cohen's anthem. Verse 1 opens book 1, verse 2 opens book 2, verse 3 opens book 3 of my trilogy. And the chorus is repeated each time. The chorus is, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So I want to hear about Leonard Cohen.
All right. So anyway, Dad was Leonard Cohen's business manager, lawyer. So I'll take you back to Suzanne. So Dad got involved right there. 1970, Leonard Cohen came down to the University of Miami. I'm an active person. I didn't go to school. I could read. I'm blessed with that type of brain. I could read a book and regurgitate it to you. It's like, here's what the book said. And when you know the game, it's easy to win. If you have a photographic memory, it's easy. Do you understand things? No. You go to these Catholic churches or whatever, or the Hebrew ones or the Jewish ones, right? Which are really the Hebrew ones. All of a sudden, you're reading verses. You have no idea what they are. And these people are telling you what they are. How could you know what the verses mean if you don't know the history of the people that wrote those verses? You don't know what they're telling you. You don't know what they wanted to take from you.
Well, I got to give a shout out to the audience here because I don't know if you're watching, and I'm sorry, I just had water go down the wrong pipe. But there's been a robust discussion about the Greek and the word for love, agape, agape, and eros. So the audience is right there with you, following along, and keep those comments coming because, as the audience knows, we'll be awarding a couple of books later to the comments that we like. Anyway, go ahead.
I love Greece, by the way, and it's in my book, Unraveling the Bible. You need to read. Anyone listening to this, and I'll give it away. I give it away on the Amazon. I'd rather you buy it, but
well, we're gonna play an ad for your book here in a minute. So I still want to hear more about Leonard Cohen.
I'm going to go right to Leonard.
Give me an anecdote about Leonard Cohen, and we'll get to your book here in a minute.
So anyway, Act 6. The reason I'm talking about Greece, Leonard went to Greece when he was being a prophet, and Greece. I love Greece. So anyway, in Act 6 of Unraveling the Bible, I tell you the history of Greece. So anyway, Leonard goes to Greece, and this is where he had Marianne, right, on his island there. And I get in the middle of Leonard Cohen, and I'm not offending anyone. And if I do,
we laugh and cry and laugh and cry about it all again. Yeah.
So Leonard
He's
used
totally
me.
the man.
He didn't have a brother. All right, he had a sister. I'll be the brother. And Leonard was 18 years old and older than me. I think he was born in 34.
Yeah.
So by 1970, when I'm 17, Leonard Cohen and I would get together and we would discuss girls. And it was really funny. It was ironic. And, he was like this big brother I had. And I don't know if Leonard Cohen ever knew what love was. There was a lot of hate in Leonard Cohen. There was a lot of anger. And a lot of my life was I would have to fix certain situations he had with women. I love women. A woman to me is a flower. They have the scent that you and I don't have. They're the best things here. They're a consciousness from beyond earth. And when they get into a body, they became earth. They are the womb of earth. And through them, you and I are consciousness. And through them, they themselves our body is nothing but a car. And there was this boxer, I'm going to answer you about Leonard Cohen in 1 second. There was this boxer that my dad was the manager, a business manager, Sugar Ray Robinson, who was the best. I mean, they're all the best, but Sugar Ray introduced me to all the ones that came after. He taught me one thing, and I'm giving this to your audience right now. You were born, and your body is the temple. He used to say to me, Stevie. Now, I'm going to give you one lesson, Stevie. You take care of your temple. Nothing else matters, Stevie. You hear me? And he would have me run alongside him when he was on his bike. He says, because if you destroy your temple, you ain't got no life. Do you hear me? You take care of that temple. And Sugar Ray, as you're listening to this, wherever you are right now, I spent my whole life listening to him. And they call it vanity. No, I made sure my body worked. So anyway, go with Leonard Cohen, and I like women. I remember one day they grabbed me on the arm and this guy named Clyde Otis pulls me out of the room and he says, Stevie, you hear that song? He was huge, Clyde Otis. He's a songwriter, producer. I go, what song? And the song went like this. Never take a pretty woman for your wife. He had just married a special
If you want to be happy for the rest of your life, never
and he had
make a
just
pretty
married like the right debutante out of the
Yeah.
Dominican Republic. So Leonard Cohen and I would sit and do this. So we had these meetings, and now I'm going to make you laugh. So now it's 1977. I'm in LA, and Leonard Cohen does an album with Phil Spector. Okay. Why? Because Dad was the lawyer, Phil Spector.
Okay.
Now what happened?
I'm going to reserve comment, but go ahead.
Anyway, so they couldn't get it a record deal. So my father says, Stevie will get it for us. Now all of a sudden, put under that pressure, it's like coming in the 7th inning. And I'm coming in the 9th inning. There's 3 guys on first, second, and third. And we're up by 1 run. I can't let the guy on second come in, let alone the guy on third. And I'm like, Dad, you went to all the record labels. He said, son, just go meet all the people. I know you'll talk someone into it. So I went to Capitol, got turned down. This is in LA. I got to A&M, got turned down. Got turned down at a lecture. And I went to Warner Brothers. And for some reason, this guy named Mo Austin and we got on. And I got in the heads of all his A&R people. And I kept telling them, this is the greatest album in the world. And they're looking at me like I'm insane. And he had a song on the album. I said, listen to this song. I'm telling you, if you did right with this song, it would be #1. And the song was called Don't Go Home With Your Heart On. It was on Death of a Ladies' Man. I got him a record deal, and he was so mad at me because he wanted that album to fail. And we got him the record deal with Warner Brothers Records in 1977. It didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's why I was reserving comment. Death of a Ladies' Man is my least favorite Cohen album.
Yeah, but now maybe you'll smile when you hear it.
Yeah, I got to go listen to it again, right? Anyway, so we're going to now go to our second commercial break, which is going to be an ad for your trilogy. And when we come back, we'll get right into the religion part of it. I mean, this has been fascinating to me, but I think we might be losing a few of our audience members who don't have the same geeky passion for music as I do. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the trilogy that Stephen Machat wrote. And we'll find out a little bit more about how you wrote it, why you wrote it, and what got you into all of this esoteric interpretation of the Holy Scriptures. Don't go anywhere. This is Created in the Image of God. We will be right back.
I'm Stephen Machat, and I'm here to tell you about my Book of Earth series. 3 books that I wrote to explain to you human life, what it's about, why are we here, and where we come from, and where do we go next. Book 1, Unraveling the Bible. I tell you the story of how our species was created and why we were created. Book 2, Taking Jesus off the cross. I tell you why we believe in these gods who expect us to worship and live in fear of them instead of worshiping yourselves and worshiping the community as a whole. I give you the story of the creation of religions and the urban centers, and I give you the story of Jesus. Book 3, We've Got to Get Out of This Place. It's a metaphysical exploration of physical death and what happens to the energy that we all come from as individual parts, and where do we go from here. It took me my life to write this, and I'm honored to be able to do this with you now, to tell you all about it. Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm here with Stephen Machat. So, Stephen, when did the idea come? Well, first of all, when did you start getting an interest in these ancient writings and in explaining your views on them?
I couldn't get out of it. My whole life, I always knew I wasn't what they were teaching me. I knew I was in spirit. I knew I was a consciousness that came from beyond. And I've lived my whole life trying to find out everything I could, because your bodies are not your friends. Your body is your car. You better take care of your car. I said that earlier. So what I did was I would pierce knowledge. You know, in my days, I couldn't Google. I would go get lost in libraries. My next door neighbor was a history freak. He would bring me back different books to read. I was a comic book freak. I thought the comic books were based on something. I was also a jock. I loved baseball.
Were you a DC or a Marvel guy?
Marvel came later. DC was there, and
Yes.
I represented Stan Lee.
You're
I
kidding
had,
me. Oh,
no,
this just gets better and better.
no, I had a, and Stan Lee is someone I used to speak to about my books. You know, he knew all about the Anakis. He knew about the Nephilim, and it scared the devil out of him. And maybe you put the devil back in him, because I believe in truth. I'll argue with anyone. I believe all it can do is make you and I better. And what I did is I took music and made it my basically my yellow brick road, because it allowed me to go to every country in the world that I could get into. And I'm not done yet. You know, and I, like with Peter Gabriel, we created WOMAD, World of Music, Arts and Dance. We had a music festival. We invited all the nations around. So when they came near me, I would I'd ask them, "What's your religion? What's it all about? What you doing? Why do you believe this? Why do you believe that?" And I'd sit. I wouldn't let them go. I wanted to know what they were thinking, you know. And I would talk. I want to know their names, like you just got mine. You know, where you're from, because it tells you everything. Because all of a sudden you can place it. The only thing I would do with you, if I was interviewing you, which I'm not, I would have asked you what years were you in Germany, and it would have given me an idea, because then you focus on Germany, and you go right there and you figure it out. So anyway, I've made a lot of music. I've done over 1,000 albums. I've been everywhere. I'm putting together the Buena Vista Social Orchestra. We're going to be touring them this summer all over America. And I don't care if you're for Biden or Trump or whoever. I'm for love. I believe in love. I don't believe in politics. I once ran for the United States Senate. And when I was running for the Senate, they were trying to stop me. I ran against Marco Rubio. They called me the spiritual candidate. It's like, why, there's something wrong in believing in love? I actually said that to them. I believe in love. Well, are you Republican or a Democrat? I'm independent. I believe in love. Do you understand what love is? Love is what you tell your spouse. Do you really believe you love her when you say that, or him? You know, and I could go on and on. I just, through my music, I figured it out. And when I was young, the band called The Kinks was in our house, and they gave me a book. They go, "Here, instead of asking us questions, read this book, and when we see you next time, we'll quiz you on this book." The book was called Chariot of the Gods, and that was it. Yeah. I started reading that book. Hey man, I'm cool. I've got English philosophical people, idealists. They taught me the word idealist. I look for an idealist. You know what you are? You're an idealist. You believe in more than you could see, and you will bring into reality what you see. You understand the alchemy of all existence starts with a thought, and out of that thought, what you do is you create a blueprint, you figure out how to make it, and then voila, you bring it into physical form. Be it a song, a dance, a restaurant, you know, that's your role. You're an idolist, and you are, and I'm honored to know you. You're a good guy. You think, and you can improvise. It's good. You can
So
play chess, you can play quarterback.
I'm just going to share from my own book. Little plug here. The People of the Sign.
Let me see it.
First book in the trilogy.
Very cool.
So this is the end of the preface. I'll end this preface with two quotes. First is an anonymous quote that caught my attention. The only thing I can change is myself, but sometimes that makes all the difference. My editor provided the second. The function of music is to release us from the tyranny of conscious thought. That's from Sir Thomas Beecham, English conductor, from 1879 to 1961.
Where I would correct them, music opens up the matrix. Your brain is not your intelligence. Your brain is the machine that makes your body work. Outside your brain is your whole higher consciousness, which every religion talks about. Your brain does nothing but makes sure your body can eat, sleep, and reproduce. The three things every beast does. Now, what music does is if I play you music, I can open up your thought process. I can open up your seventh, your sixth, and your fifth chakra, which what makes all mankind different. We are a consciousness locked inside this body, and we came here to play on earth. We came here to learn love. And I'll tell everyone listening, and I'll tell you, it's all about love. You discover love. I wrote book 3. I teach you all about death. I teach you about reincarnation. I studied with the Dalai Lama's people. I teach you about the Egyptian Book of the Dead and Ascension. I teach it to you. I teach you why it doesn't work. And then I'm a metaphysicist too, and I study energy. And that began because I'm a type 1 diabetic, and they told me I would not live to see 60. Well, they were wrong. I learned how the energy that you eat makes your body work, and I learned that your bloodline. They tell you, oh, what's your blood?
So tell us a little bit about that, because I'll share why after I let you talk. But I think this could be a really important point for the audience if they've not realized this, the control that we do have. I mean, I'm not saying. Well, I'll just let you talk here. So tell us a little
ask
bit.
me a question.
Well, so when you were diagnosed with did you say type 2 diabetes?
No, type 2 diabetes means your body doesn't work. Type 1
Right.
means no insulin.
Right.
I have no insulin. I didn't make
Okay,
it.
so it was type 1.
Yep.
So tell us about that, the diagnosis and what you did.
What happened was my mother hid it. She didn't tell us that her father died of it. She didn't tell me. So I went through school without anyone figuring it out. And, and then one day I was running the biggest management company in the world. And I was always on the go. And I started losing weight, and I started falling asleep. And I went to a doctor, and the doctor looked at me and he goes, well, why don't we take your sugar? I go, how do you take my sugar? This is 1985. And he goes like this, and he does the sugar test. Now I have this thing. This saved my life, or it gave me more life. I could measure my sugar. Now the sugar, what it did is I didn't digest my food. They would sit with me. I would lose weight. I'd lose more weight. I'd get tired. Sugar wouldn't go into my organs. The organs got messed up. And, I was a goner, except there's one thing. I seriously love life. I'm being real dead serious. Even those that I don't like, I love them because they teach me something. Like, okay, you hate this person, you can kill them. And then what? Bingo, they're dead. It's like a video game. Boom, 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 dead. It's like I did this movie. I produced it called Bully. It was about kids down here in Broward County that killed someone thinking it was a video game. And then after they killed them, they woke up. Great soundtrack, by the way. They woke up the following morning and they're like, oh my God, we killed this guy. We killed the bully. And it's a true story, So I learned how my body works. I learned my moods. I studied it. I studied the electric energy that comes into my body because I wasn't going to die like they told me. I'll die other ways, but not if I can control it. I'll figure it out. I learned energy. I learned when you eat, what happens is the food, the energy goes into your blood as glucose. They call it sugar. No, it's glucose. And sugar is a glucose that man makes. You know, and all the food you eat, you digest it. What you do is you digest it and you make it glucose. And this is simple. I'm
Yeah,
giving you.
carbohydrates mixed with your saliva.
Yeah, right. And then you excrete what you don't need, you give it back to earth, or you urinate it out. And the other of it you put in your body, and it feeds the nutrient of your cell, the nucleus. The electron goes the way the sun goes around the universe. The proton goes away, the earth goes around the sun, and you've got this mix that goes like this on the circles. And then in the middle is the energy. And when you die, the energy leaves your body and you become nothing but a statue. That's all you are. You know, and now what do? So they told me I had this, and I spent my whole life I did tests for the companies. I would eat and they'd check my blood out. And here I am right now, my AC1, A1C, whatever it is, it's 5.2. No one could believe it. You know, and I'm here to talk. I'm here to share. Never give up is what I want to share. And never lose the fact of love. And if you believe in the creator of all, that creator created you for love. And the question is, what creates you? It's called love. We are love. We are just independent teardrops of the consciousness of all. And we left that consciousness of the water called consciousness. It's not water. You know, water has, it's two oxygens
So,
for the
so there's this beautiful quote in the Baha'i faith about the oneness of humanity. We are drops of one ocean.
Yeah, conscious ocean. I totally agree with them. It's not physical, but it's the energy. It's the energy. We talked earlier when we were talking about the different energy in parts of Earth that come into Earth. Everything. I mean, we're in a ship right now. We're in a ship leaving from nowhere, going nowhere. And all we are is we're moving around on a planet. Planet's a Greek word, means wanderers. We're in this planet. You pull the planet out, we're still here. You know, it's like, now what do? We just go around. We're traveling, what, 500 minutes a mile? No, that's wrong. 500 miles per minute. But if you go 5 miles in your car, you get, I'm moving. Well, excuse me. You're standing on an escalator and you're moving.
So let's go back for a moment to this proton and the electron, but let's unpack it even more. Let's talk about quantum particles and quantum entanglement. What are your thoughts, views on that as we get to the most basic building blocks? You know, where that sort of ether in between. Ether is not the right word, but that space in between matter and energy, energy and matter. You know,
energy makes the matter. And by the way, so, you know, when you look at you have particles that are vibrating, right? And what makes that happen? It's the energy. And how does it come in here? Well, basically they incarnate, they make bodies, they make systems, they make matrix. Our whole matrix is a right triangle. When you're in this matrix, you're locked here. The way to get out of here, like our consciousness is an energy, but the energy has an intelligence. It has the ability to assimilate, metabolize, crystallize. It has knowledge. It can remember what it did. You know, it could create situations where you make your alter ego. You get a woman gets a man with a womb, you know, we've made all this. Our higher consciousness has totally created this.
So we've got a quote.
And God is
we've got an audience member who's now saying, hey, let's get to Unraveling the Bible. So let's dive into that book. Let's dive into, well, let me ask a more general question first and then talk specifically about the book. So when you say energy has awareness and or memory, did you have some kind of help or mission or calling around writing this book? Or did you just want to share what you were understanding? What was your sort of purpose in documenting it?
I was born to study the history of mankind. I knew they were lying to me. When they told us Christopher Columbus discovered America, No, we didn't. You know, that's like telling me Marco Polo discovered China. That's what the Vatican did. They put everything into one character, becomes a talisman, and they sell it to you. I learned this game when I managed to produce the new edition of Bobby Brown or Ozzy Osbourne. I learned how to sell merchandise,
Yep.
you know, and you put on the shirt, hey, man, I'm Ozzy. When you put on this shirt, hey, man, I'm one of these Christians. And what are you going to do about it? You're going to love people? What are you going to do with it? I wanted to know why. When I was in 7th grade, I got thrown out of 7th grade because they told me, and I wasn't being a wise guy. They said to me that this guy, whatever his name is, starts with the B, he discovered the Pacific Ocean, Balboa. And I'm like, how did he discover the Pacific Ocean? And the teachers look at me like, oh. And I said to him, how did he discover it? How did he get there? Well, I said, who took him there? Did he go there and discover it? They said, no, the natives brought him there. So then I asked him if the natives were blind. I got thrown right out of school. To the principal, he goes. You know, everyone's in the class laughing, but I was being serious.
Yeah.
I just knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And then and I wrote my book, God's Gangsters in Honor, and I'm answering your question. My book, God's Gangsters in Honor. I woke up one morning, I'm like, okay, I've just wasted my time. And here I am, and I'm watching a football game, Tampa in the Super Bowl. It's Tampa Super Bowl. And my clients tell me I have to buy him $4,000 seats because he and I just had a #1 record. I'm like, no. You should buy me the seat. And the song was called Lick My Neck, My Back. It was by an artist named Kaya. And I sat there and I spoke to the energies that I do believe in. I said, what am I going to do? This is crazy. I heard, write your books. They told me plural. So I've been directed by energy from the beyond. I wanted to know how man got here. Like I'm reading the Bible, and I don't know anyone that doesn't tell you at one point in their lives, this is hogwash. Yet they all worship it. And I'm like, hey, no. You know something?
You've now met somebody who will not tell you it's hogwash, but that's okay. Go on.
No, but one time you probably did. Right? And I don't think it's hogwash either. And I'm answering your friend.
Got it.
That's a true story. I always looked at it like the other way because the population's always wrong, you know?
Yeah,
Always
the majority's always wrong. Sorry, majority.
Yeah, it's the truth, right?
Hopefully that's going to change, right? But
only if you understand metaphysics.
Yeah.
The sun goes right. Do you know what would happen if all of us went the same way? We'd fall on our faces. You ever go on a seesaw? Can you imagine if we were all seesawing the same way? We'd be up and over. You'd be jumping out. You'd be like gone. So I believe the Bible is true. And so I wanted to study why people made up all these stories if there's one God, right? Well, why did one God make all these different people hate each other? Why can't we get along, you know? So I studied it, and I used music and dance to get into people's heads. Because when they realize that I'm interested in them, and when I start putting out, I had the biggest acts in the world, all over the world, because I could get into your head. And they taught me so much. Everyone I've ever met has helped me get to the point like there is a basis for each and every one of us. All we want is love. All we need is love. We want love. And we can't be, you know, not all of us, but most of us, we can't be that truthful. We want love, you know? And the way to ascend to get out of here is to let go. They call it karma. You could let go of karma right now, done. But you know something? Good luck letting go, because all of a sudden you're going to go, now that person got me mad. And all of a sudden your consciousness gets a weight. If it has weight, it falls into the matrix of that weight and you reincarnate. That's in book 3. And book 1, what I did is, okay, I'm going to unravel the Bible. And like with people and people get dealt to me like it's a card game. Here's another energy for you, Stephen. So anyway, Stan Lee was one of those energies, right? And if you read the book, Hillary Clinton cost him his entire empire. You know, he gave her money and she wasn't supposed to cash a check in 2000 when she was running for New York Senator. And she cashed it. And all of a sudden, my stock that was 16 3/4 went down to, I think, 5/8. Disappeared.
Oh wait, are you talking about the Marvel company at that time?
Marvel comic book.
Yeah.
He had been bought out. He sold everything. And the deal he made was If you don't know, I'll share it. He made $1 million paid, and he got to be in every movie that they made from his comics.
Right.
That's how because it was broke. You know,
Yep.
comics were not the cool thing. Now
Right.
they're cool. And they weren't cool 6 years ago. Then they weren't 9 years ago.
Well, and he was still
People,
traveling around, to the Comic-Con signing stuff because he, despite all that he created, yeah, he ended up kind of on the short end of it.
and then when he had money, it went bye-bye in the stock.
Yeah. But I used to get the stock reports, and they used to, the annual reports of Marvel Group or whatever it was. They were comic books. They were,
Yeah.
and they were hilarious. I have them somewhere here. The annual report in 91, 92, 93. Anyway, back to unraveling the Bible. So
Okay.
so let's talk about the Tower of Babel and Nimrod.
Okay. I give you a different story, but basically what happened was, okay, I'll try to face it this way. So these creatures came from a planet called Nibiru, which translates to us called heaven. The people from Nibiru, the beings, call them the beings, we're the people. The beings, our lives in our bodies live in a matrix. Let's call it Earth's matrix. Our body, the longest this body will last, is 120 Earth years. Now, your body, because it's made of Earth products, lives in body, and it will warp in body time. So you get 120 circles around the sun. Now, if you're lucky, you'll get to 72. If you're lucky, you'll hit 50. But they will wear out. So even if you take good care of yourself, one day the body, it's like your car, it don't work. So now these people from Nibiru, according to the tablets I've read from them, and it's all over Earth, these tablets, they're found. And I dedicate everything I've done right now to the men and women who went exploring the Middle East, who went exploring, let's call it the Andes region of Ecuador, Chile, not Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru. I did a movie in Peru, which really helped me get all this information because I got stuck there when the embassy got invaded. The movie's called Anaconda, if people have seen it. And, I sat there studying with all these people, and I meet these adepts, and they teach me this, they teach me that. And what I did is I write history. I love history. I can't get out of it. So I put it all together, what they were telling me. Like they tell you they don't understand, where did the Mayans come from? They left. No, they didn't. They were created by the film that created us. So who's Nimrod? Okay, so Nimrod, in my understanding, and he called himself Nimrod, was also known as Marduk. He's also known as Zeus. He was also known as Ra. And what they would do is they were able to travel. Now, in those days, there was no travel. Matter of fact, 150 years ago, there was no travel either. That's when they created the Western Union telegrams, right? We're living in a really cool time, people, because we're accelerating. We're becoming our Nephilim. And what the Nephilim did is they landed here to get the gold. They needed gold. Why did they need gold? They needed gold because they had a planet that was encased inside a bubble, and it was leaking. And the gold they could melt. And by melting it, they could put the holes. And this is all in the book. And I lay it out. I make it real simple. It was written 3 times because all the questions, I had a lot of people read it. And the star reader was the woman that became my wife. And, I made it so everyone could understand it. When she didn't understand, I'll write it. Doesn't mean she agreed with me, but she understood what I was writing. I made it real plain. So they came to Earth, and there was a guy named King Anu, who was in charge of the Nephilim. And they came to Earth, and they had a king. They had a queen. Her name was Anu. And they had a royal family, not unlike the royal family from England, and then they had offsprings. They were prince and princesses. And then the prince and princesses reproduced with other beings, and what they did is they created other prince and princesses. They had a royal retinue. And what they did is they had a royal retinue.
And so let me just tie this down to,
I'm getting you to Nimrod.
no, hang on. So for those who may be very familiar with the Bible, in those early chapters of the book of Genesis, you have pieces of this story that would correlate to the story as Stephen is telling it, right? Where it talks about the sons of God, procreating with the daughters of men, and so on. So these are these mysterious early verses in the Bible that have led to speculation even inside biblical circles. So I just wanted to
No,
mention that in case. Yeah.
no, I'm glad you know that. And I spent my whole life researching this. I even went into the Vatican until I realized what I was doing. I would speak to them all. I made an album with the communist Pope, which was hysterical. We would we would read his poetry. We put it to verse, and we would have guys like Steven Tyler of Aerosmith do it. Madonna did one. It was really funny. And then the guy that was running Warner Brother Records at that time, 20 years after my Leonard Cohen story, he says to me, Phil Cardamaro, he goes, I'm not putting this out. I go, why are you not putting this out? He goes, what happens if it doesn't sell? I said, then maybe they didn't want it to sell. Yeah, but then I'm going to have to pay for it. I'm looking at Mom, you're not being serious with me, are you? I said, look at some of the crap you put out. You know, like, this is his poetry. Yeah, but it needs to sell. I said, then make it sell. And anyway, we didn't get the deal, so that never came out. I made an album with the Dalai Lama. I used to live with the Native American Indians to get their ceremonies and chants. I put out records with them. I went everywhere I could. I was all over Africa. I was all over the Middle East. And so anyway, going back to Nimrod, so there were three people. King Anu, then there was someone named Enlil, and there was another person named Enki. Enki was the scientist. And these were direct sons of Anu. Enki was the man in my book that created mankind. And then you had Enlil, who became the Hebrew god. Enlil became the Hebrew god because Enki had a son who was not allowed to come back to Earth. And his name was Marduk. And what these people do is they lived 120 Nibiru years. And each Nibiru year equals 3,600 Earth years. And do the math. So when you read these numbers inside the Bible and people are going, because I knew there's no way someone could have made that up 6,000 years ago. And by the way, 6,000 years ago to the day, you'll read this in my book, is when they decided we're going to give mankind society. We're going to now civilize them. We're going to teach them our societies. Like, where do people think the scepter came from? The orb came from? Then they have like the spear, but the spear wasn't the one that did that, the spear of destiny. Then they have the sword, the regal, or however you say it. That's what all these kings and queens have. They took it right from Nibiru. They were taught to do this. And that's the story. When they tell you the Bible was created 5,800 years ago, it almost mirrors exactly what I got out of these tablets. And when I tell you I studied it, I'm telling you, I spent 50 years doing this. And people would think I'm crazy because here I am, I'm making all this money and I didn't like money. I'll spend the money. I'll give it away to people. I made all this money. I signed 50 acts in New York and ran myself ragged because I had a lot of bands then. And I was playing with white, black, Native American Indians. I was playing with stuff all over. I had the number one artist out of Italy, Riccardo Conchate, Franco Battiato. In Brazil, I had Rita Lee, Gilberto Gil. I had a lot of fun. Yeah, we had Golden Earring out of Dallas. England, forget about it. I'm going back to England Friday. I still have acts there. I still put out music. Buena Vista Social Orchestra, a Wise version. It's going to be really a lot of fun. And because I want people to believe in love. And part of love is music. And part of being musical, when you make a restaurant, it's music. You've got energy in there on the walls, and you're getting people to believe and to bounce around and just to get them going. You bring them into a place and you're there at that special moment and all of a sudden you're hugging each other and your whole world, you're smiling. You get exactly what I'm saying. You change form, you do. Wouldn't it be great if you could go, all right, I've had enough of this crap. I'm going to now talk to someone that has defied all logic, is able to live, has never owned a house in America, doesn't believe in any of this system, but believes that his love will always find people he can walk around with and make money with. And that's the truth. And I dedicate everything I can. I have 12 books out. I'm telling you, we'll open your mind. And Unraveling the Bible, I mean, your audience should read it. It's a bestseller on Amazon. And people say to me, oh, this is all hogwash. I'm like, They say other things, but I'm using hogwash to be polite. But anyway, I'm like, okay, let's assume it is. That's the best story you will ever get. You will never get a better story. And when I told you about my back problems, you know, when I had my abscess on my back and I went through AFib, they told my wife I would never live. And I did go out. But I don't know. I don't believe you could die anyway. Did I die? No. But I left my body and I was in this energy field. And they go, what's the energy field like? Maybe it was like the inside of a piano. When you hit a note, all of a sudden, because we weren't talking, all I felt were different vibrations. And I'm like, this is really cool. You know, and all I know is I saw Debbie in my mind. And I'm like, oh, I'm going back with her. Because we decided that she would help be my partner that would keep me going as I write these books. And I wrote these books, and all I want to do is just go around the world. I got back in. They told me I'm not walking again. I said, that ain't happening. You tell me how to walk. You know, tell me what it is. What nerves do I have to do? How do I get it? How do I make my back work? And I believe in will. A will help you manifest, and you got to be really strong, because I believe there's nothing you can't do as long as your body will let you do it. I mean, I can't take my arm off and throw it, or at least not yet, then have it come back and put it back on. I can't do that.
Well, so we're going to now go to one last commercial break real quick. And while we do that, you can begin looking at the chat, because we're going to give away some books here in just a minute. So stay tuned and keep those comments coming. We're going to talk a little bit about, or we're going to see a video about the Royal Falcon Foundation, which is something I'm heavily involved in terms of giving back and doing good. And when we come back, we'll look at the comments and give away a couple of books. Be right back.
Welcome to the Royal Falcon Foundation. Our curriculum and activities inspire and train adolescents through hands-on experiences, fostering growth and empowerment. Through immersive and challenging experiences, we shape young minds to think independently and develop their leadership skills. Our programs foster new friendships and unity, shaping young leaders to tackle real-world challenges with confidence. We believe in equipping the next generation with the skills to become leaders of tomorrow. Join us at the Royal Falcon Foundation and be part of a journey that empowers, unites, and inspires. Visit our website and embrace a world of possibilities today. RoyalFalconFoundation.com.
All right, welcome back. We're wrapping up with Stephen Machat for tonight, and going back through some of the comments. So I'll just remind everyone of some of the earlier conversation, talking about history, talking about love. We had a comment from our good fan, Lord Cole, who has already said, hey, don't give me any books. I'm up in Canada. We like to ship them in the US. Talking about the Greek word for love being agape, and another commenter, Dog Collector, talking about different Greek words for love: philia, brotherly love; eros, sexual love; agape, that godly spiritual love. So there was discussion about talking about the original languages. Any of this speaking to you, Stephen? Any other comments?
They're all right. And what happened was, going back to Marduk, and who was also known as Nimrod, he wanted to control all the different elements, and he never wanted them to realize that he was living in all those places I told you. So by changing their languages, they weren't able to communicate with each other. Because why don't we have their language? Well, they didn't want us to have their language.
So tell us a little bit. What is your interpretation of exactly what happened there, in terms of were the languages really changed? They were confused. What happened?
They made different languages for different territories. They made it. Then the film made it, because this way, they couldn't have one person just run amok on everybody. So different prince and princesses had different territories, and what they did is each one got to represent the world of Earth for 2,200 years. Like, say it's 4,000 BC, and you start learning all about the people from Crete, and you'll see that they had bulls everywhere. Well, that was the age of the bull, and they married it to the astrological signs that we all live through. And the sun goes the opposite way. So even though today we're sitting here right now and we're in, I guess we're in Pisces. We're in the Pisces month. So, okay, so Pisces doesn't become Aries when you go in the way the sun is. Pisces becomes Aquarius, and then Aquarius, we're in the age of Aquarius now. The next age will be Capricorn. And these were created by the Nephilim. It's all in the book, and I explain it to you. And what they did was, okay, so now so I was telling you about the bull's the Taurus, right? And then
So
Aries,
what about that Mayan calendar, right?
if
Which
you
was a
divide
big
it by
thing a few years ago.
if you divide it by 6, you'll start figuring it out. Remember the Babylonians. Anyway, Marduk was ruling Babylon, and one of his names he chose was Nimrod. And he kept fighting with Enlil, who had the Sinai Peninsula, which is where they hid all their weapons of mass destruction. And if you want to do something that will flip everybody out listening to me, Google Sodom and Gomorrah and go to the Smithsonian, and you'll see an article where they tell you they dropped atomic bombs on them. They didn't say they dropped it. What they do say is they found atomic activity in Sodom and Gomorrah that goes back 4,000 years ago.
Well,
Which
there's
desert.
there's various actual theories around. It's very clear that the evidence that they found is parallel with an atomic explosion. They've described it as perhaps this giant asteroid superheating and exploding above Earth. You know,
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
explain it through some physical phenomenon.
yep. They dropped atomic bombs, and that's what went on. And that's how the world is still suffering from Enlil and his fight with his nephew, Marduk. Enlil's the Hebrew God. He told these people, I'll come and protect you, because all he wanted to do was to keep them out of Sinai, because they were nuclear weapons. And Enki, the guy who gave birth to Marduk, he wrote a book. It's called the Book of Enki. And this was a book that your hero, Stan Lee, and we would read it all the time. Enki wrote the book, and it says in the book, I wrote this so people understand that as above, because they were north of us, as is below us. And they would come in on these spaceships, and they call them that they would land from heaven, and they did sleep with the women. They made the women. And then because they had longer life than us, their DNA gave them that type of bloodline. It's not spirit and intelligence, but it's physical ability on your bloodline, your DNA. And they would live longer, and they were called demigods. Alexander was a demigod, and what Nimrod did is he made an absolute mess. And that's in Act 5 of that book. My books are 18 acts. Book of Earth, Unraveling the Bible, 7 acts. It brings you to Atlantis with Stan Lee. I would sit there and I wrote Act 8 with Stan Lee. I tell you all about Atlantis. I tell you about, you're smiling, you would love it. I didn't realize you really like them, because this is the stuff
I grew up on comic books when they were very, very uncool.
Yeah, right? Like, why would you read that? Why wouldn't I read it? What are you reading?
And so I mean, when I went to see the first Spider-Man movie, I almost cried because suddenly it was so cool, and I knew all the stories, and the fact that, anyway. So we're out of time. We could keep going on forever. I don't know if there's a particular comment you want to pick so that we can decide to award one of your books. I've pointed out Smurf Cat, Vibratory Physics. It's all math. A.M. Sterling, welcome back. Haven't seen you at all. Really interesting guest, although I'm not entirely sure what to make of the conversation. Thank you.
Just let it sit in your head like you just took a hit of some pot or whatever you do, and just enjoy it. I saw something here that, this is why I want to say it. I'm ready to go down.
Yeah.
And there's a guy at 22:01 my time, which would be 21:01 your time. And his name is Nathan Obman. I don't know. Allah Abba. I'm a school bus driver. I'm in debt. I owe $20,000. I don't make enough money to pay it back. Is there any chance you could hook me up with 20K, 10K, even 5K? That would help me so much. I have a better idea. I'll give you a book or two, whatever you're about to get from our friend. Read the book, and I'll tell you something. Believe in yourself. There's ways to dismiss your debt. By the way, in the old days, they used to have in the Bible, they would have a period where you would be forgiven debt. Everyone was forgiven debt in different societies. We all don't win, except in life. The bankers win, you lose. When I
Well,
ran
yeah.
for
So
office,
this is one of my favorite topics, to be honest, because in the I forget which book, it might be Leviticus, is the whole system of the years of Jubilee. And
yeah,
you've got the land Sabbath. So you got the seventh day Sabbath, then you've got the land Sabbath, and every 7 years, all debt
debt is
was
forgiven.
forgiven.
Yep,
And even better, the land was apportioned out to all the families.
yep,
And you could lose your land temporarily. If your father was just really fell on hard times, got sick, or was just reprobate or whatever, and squandered your inheritance such that you had to, basically sell your land and become a slave or an indentured servant. In the year of Jubilee, the land reverted to the rightful owners. The wealth was redistributed out among the families. You could certainly, and it was all regulated, right? You could buy houses in the city, and those could be permanently owned, and so on. But the land would always revert back to the people. And this system was so far ahead of its time. You
yep.
look into economic cycles now, and there's a big crash every 50 years or so because
Or
of the
quicker.
aggregation of wealth. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So so yeah. So thank you. So Nathaniel, send an email to info@soupllc.com, and we will get those books out to you.
And Nathaniel, because you owe the money, you could play the system to your advantage. Do it. Go out there and create. You had the nerve to write the letter. I saw the letter. I wasn't looking, but it came out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. So the 6 lines stood out over everybody else. Believe in yourself.
Jay
And do it
Forrest,
yourself.
talking about he's in Leviticus right now. I don't know what that means exactly in it, whether you're
It means
going
he's
through the
reading it.
Bible and yeah, or you're reading it right now this minute, or you're on a program, but coincidence, right? Are there coincidences? Um
There are,
Gangster
but you
Muppet
need to figure it out.
Gangster Muppet here is proud of being a nerd. Um, I really enjoy these comments, by the way. Thank you. We have, I try hard not to get distracted as I'm talking to the guest, listening to the guest, but I love seeing these comments come in. So, uh, here's another interesting one. At
He answered you.
2055,
He's in a
I've heard.
one-year Bible program.
Thank you. I've heard that why women in the Middle East cover their faces to keep the giants from favoring them. Don't remember where I heard that.
By the way, they cover their faces because they don't want men to come near them. Oh, I'll tell you a funny story. I'll let you people hear this. So anyway, I went to Egypt and I started studying all the Egyptian things. And I had longer hair then, and my son had curly hair. So, and I don't really brush my hair, which I could give a crap. I believe
You and Einstein.
yeah, it's like I just whatever. I don't care. So anyway, we're in Egypt, and
I take really good care of my hair, as you can see.
I saw that, and we're in Egypt, and we're driving the Siwa, SIWA, which was really cool. And I wanted to get all the lessons from Alexander, and all of a sudden I had things in my hair, and I had whatever they're called, knots. And Baron, my son, didn't have anything, and I was there with 4 Egyptians that were watching me and teaching me, and they're laughing and no, look at us. Look at our head. We don't have that. I go, where do I get a brush? They go, not here. I go, well, what are these women wearing? I'm going to answer you now. And so they go, well, they get their brush in the women's shop. I go, okay. They go, you can't go in there. I go, why not? I said, then where's the men's shop? They go, over here. So I go, it's like, and my son looks at me and he goes, oh God, please, Dad, don't do that. And he knew what I was doing. I went to the men's shop. They didn't have it. All the people outside where the Jeep was parked, they didn't see me. I walked right into the woman's shop. They're sitting there giggling, and they sold me a brush. And anyway, the reason I just told you that whole story is I'm looking at them, and not only do they have things over their face, they're black, and it's 120 degrees. And I look at them and I go, why are you covering your face? And why are you wearing black when they're outside in white? And this woman says to me in pure English, she says, because this way we protect the birth inside our bellies and we don't lose our babies. I said, how many hundreds of years ago is that? And she smiled and she said to me, we still live that way. We don't want to get harmed. So this way we go in. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, I've been in Saudi Arabia where they make the women put on their thing here. I was in Jerusalem. I was in the Palestine there. And this woman that I was being interviewed by, she gave me this book, and it was about a woman from Tunisia that didn't know whether wearing that thing made her a mark or a martyr, because she fought off society. And she was telling me the good and bad about it. And they wear it to cover themselves from, the beast side of men. And we are. You know, and you got to not be a beast. You got to be loving. Everyone is equal. I believe that.
Well, that may be a good place to end it tonight. We're over time, but want to keep going. Want to keep talking to you. We'll have to come back. We'll have to have you back and dive
I'd be
in
honored.
deeper. I think what I want to do is actually because I haven't read your books yet. When we began talking and we had an opening because of a cancellation, I believe it was, we got you on right away. But I want to actually get and read it and then get more specific into some of
Let's
this
go.
stuff. So
I'll definitely do that with you. You know what you're reading. So you'll make me better, and maybe I'll show you some other side. Because I'm not afraid. I'll tell you a story with Leonard Cohen real quick. You want to? Anyway, I'm living with this Muslim, with the girl that ratted out Enron, and we're doing fracking contracts because I do have that aptitude. So I'm creating a fracking form contract. And Tower of London comes on her car, you know, and she goes, "You know him too?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "How well do you know him?" And I said, "Watch this."
do you mean Tower of London Squeeze, or are you talking about Tower of
No,
Song?
Tower of Song,
Okay.
Tower of Cone, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking London. You know, I'm like, I got to start packing. I'm going away there on
No,
Friday.
it's Ecstasy that did Tower of London. It's a great song, but okay. Anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, I call him up. I tell him I need to see him. So he goes, okay. And he picked up because of other reasons. You could read about him in my books. So I'm back in LA and I go to see him, and he has someone hiding from me because they thought whatever they thought.
Was this during his Buddhist phase where he was living with the
No,
monks?
this was later.
Okay.
This was after Buddha.
Yeah.
And by the way, I used to go there with him and I'd study with them. I studied anything and everything. And they say, I need to ask you a couple of questions about, Buddha and Hindu. And he says to me, well, I can't right now. I'm going to make you laugh. I go, why can't you? And he's got this guy because Leonard owed me a lot of money, which goes back to my father's death. And he didn't pay me. And it deals with my dad's mistress and Leonard. And it's a cockamamie thing. And we don't need to go with it. And Leonard and I, we loved each other when he left. But anyway, so I'm there. And he says to me, right now I have to go. It's like 4:45 in LA. I go, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to Temple El Dada. I'm like, why are you going to Temple El Dada? El represented on Lee. And I'm like, why are you going there? And he says, well, they're having services now. I said, Leonard, that's a Jewish temple. You told me that's the biggest crock of bull you've ever read. Everything about it. And he looks at me and he goes like this. He goes back in his chair and he comes right at me like this. He goes, Steve, I'm old. I'm hedging my bets.
Well, now I've got to tell now my favorite Jewish joke. I told it to you before, but I don't think I've ever told it on air. But you're talking about Leonard Cohen being, I'm old, I'm hedging my bets, right? And that is, when you talked about 120 years, there's the 70 in the Bible. Again, the 70 years that are granted.
You
and
need
then
to get
the limit of 120 is also put in there. It says we will limit their years to 120. But then anyway, the Jews apparently have this saying on birthdays, and I'm not Jewish, so I don't really know, but apparently the saying is, on a birthday, it's Mazel Tov, may you live to be 120. Right? That's the typical birthday greeting. Mazel Tov, may you live to be 120.
I didn't even know that, and that's great.
Right. And so then the question is, and I shared this with you, so don't give away the punchline. The question is, well, what do they say then on your 120th birthday? And the answer is, have a nice day.
That's very good.
So there we have it, friends. Songs, talk about Leonard Cohen and aliens and what else have we not covered tonight, but we will dive deeper into this topic. We will actually get into some of the verses, I think. I'd like to actually pull out some of these verses. And I'm not saying I buy everything you're saying, but I'm going to buy your book and read it. The first one in particular, Unraveling the Bible. That was the first one, right?
Of this series,
Of the
yes.
series, yeah.
You need
So I'm gonna
to
buy.
add
I'm gonna
Act
get that
one
one.
through seven.
I'm gonna get that one and read it, and dig a little bit deeper into some of these stories because the Tower of Babel story has fascinated me. Bob L. in Akkadian, the Gate of God, and the Tower to Heaven, and these things correlate to things that I began to learn about the Baha'i faith and the Bab, the Gate of God. So there were connections here which intrigued me and interested me. And I'm not saying you have all the answers, but what I do know is that like a pot, like an old, clay pot. And I did archaeology. This is actually City of David hat that I got when I revisited the archaeological site because I was on the City of David archaeological expedition many years
Very cool.
ago, actually digging in the earth at Zion, the City of David, and found a couple of interesting things while there. But mostly what you find is broken potsherds, right? And I viewed the Tower of Babel in the language as of the breaking of a pot and the scattering of the pieces in different places around the earth. And if you look at Native American and indigenous prophecies and the prophecies of Turtle Island, for example, you have this sense of things being distributed across the population of humanity. Maybe it's some kind of redundancy, maybe it's some kind of laboratory for, multiple advance, but in any case, in the time of the end, the gathering together, the reuniting, the becoming one again, these differentiated experiences are important, that we can come back together and share what we have, share what we learned, share our history, share our understanding, share our awareness in such a way that we can put the pieces back together
I
in
believe
love and unity.
I believe we can, and the film moved us around. It's all in my book. And the other thing that's really important when I realized why it didn't gel is like, wait a minute. They had the Ice Age. So there were no people living in North America. There were no people living in Europe above, like the toenails of Italy, you know? And and all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a minute. You put the whole thing together because the Bible only deals with this, and then you got the Indians, and then you got the South Americans and the Mexicans, call it Mexico or whatever down there. You know, that started about 10, 12,000 years ago. And the Great Flood was 13,000 years ago. The Great Flood is how the Ice Age ended. It came up from the south, and it took out all the things. You know, we're talking about New York. Look at the Hudson River, right? You know, go look at the
Yep.
other side, the cliffs. But anyway,
All right.
just put it all
Can't-
together. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go.
Can't get into that now, but I want to get into all of that. We will
Let's
we
do
will
it.
have you back. We will talk more. Stephen, thank you so much for your time, for honoring us with your presence, your stories, your wisdom, your awareness, your energy. And let me just quickly share with everybody who we're going to have next week. That's the one thing I'm just so intrigued here and having so much fun. I almost forgot. I got to tell everybody what we're doing next week. So give me a moment here to find my little cheat sheet. Next week, we have a returning guest, Joseph Atman, who has a PhD in the philosophy of religion, and he has founded Middle Tree out in California. We've had him on here before. We've talked about this, but we need to dive in deeper into what is Middle Tree, what is his mission, what is his vision, why is he involved in education of young people in California, and what led him to launch Middle Tree, and how does it contribute to societal enlightenment and combat ignorance? You don't want to miss it. He's a philosopher. We'll probably have Dan back with us again. He's actually in the studio. I have not seen him say anything in the chat, so I'm not going to drag him out here unprepared. But I'm sure we'll have Dan back to explore some of these topics with Joe Atman next week. Same time, same place, 8 o'clock Central. Created in the Image of God. Don't miss it. Invite your friends, subscribe, and for what was his name again? I got to go back and look. Nathaniel, email info@soupllc.com so we can get you your free books. Stephen, any last words of wisdom before we sign off for the evening?
If I could tell you one thing, when you get upset, we all do go upset. Whenever you get lost, whenever you get confused, whenever you feel that everything's gone away, just close your eyes and just envision the consciousness that we all call God, that we broke away from. And just envision and go back into that warm feeling of love. Open your eyes, and whatever bothered you is gone. Live in the new moment. It's a gift. We call it the present in this language. Never give up hope. Always believe in you. And there's nothing you can't do that your physical body will let you do. Believe in love. It's the question, it's the answer. And my love to all of you. And my love to you, my new friend. You take good care. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Keep
And
in
to our
touch.
audience, stay well, dwell in love, meditate on it, and we'll see you all here next week.